welcome into Texans Today. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and today we got a jam-packed show for you. The top Texans free agent target. Could the Texans land Chris Jones? Well, one publication thinks so. And talking a little early Texans cut candidates, a lot of free agents for the Houston Texans this offseason, but who could be some guys who could be cut? One surprise last year that I didn't see coming was Desmond King. I'll let you know 4 guys who I think might get cut early on in this offseason. So let's get right into some news, though. Chris Kiffin, linebacker coach for the Houston Texans, is interviewing for the Miami defensive coordinator position. He's been the Texans linebacking coach this past year, was the Browns D-line coach and a 49ers pass rush specialist in 2018 and 2019. He is the son of Monty Kiffin, who coached 24 years in the NFL, and brother of Lane Kiffin, the head coach at Ole Miss. Just keeping y'all updated, letting y'all know what's going on around the Texans coaching staff. Thankful to have Gerard Johnson and Bobby Slowick back, but Chris Kiffin might be on his way out the door if Miami decides to hire him as their defensive coordinator. And this is exactly why you hit that sub button, ladies and gentlemen, for the latest Texans news and rumors. We'll have you updated all off season long. Just 358 away from 11K subs. So go down and hit that sub button. My plea to you, give me 1 week. If you don't like the channel in a week, it's all good. You can unsubscribe. It's 100% free. But if you love the Houston Texans and want to stay updated, go down and hit that sub button and let me prove to you that this is the best Texans YouTube channel on the internet. So getting into today's main story, the main topic, probably the reason why you clicked into this video, Chris Jones. Could the Houston Texans end up signing the Chiefs defensive tackle? Well, Bleacher Report thinks so. They predicted the Texans will sign Chris Jones in free agency this offseason. And I just got to know off the bat, what would be your one-word reaction if the Texans were able to sign Chris Jones this offseason? Let me know down in the comments section, because me personally, if the Texans sign Chris Jones this offseason, I have one word and one word alone for it. Bop! That's home run. It would be a home run signing for the Houston Texans if they were able to steal Chris Jones away from the AFC champs, the Kansas City Chiefs. As we look at what he's done the past 4 seasons, Chris Jones has been one of the, if not the best interior defensive linemen in the entire National Football League. Up there with Aaron Donald, up there with the likes of, Cameron Hayward, Fletcher Cox, among others. Chris Jones would be an absolute menace alongside Will Anderson Jr. 10.5 sacks this past season, 15.5 the year before. Chris Jones, the 6'6", 310-pound defensive tackle, can also kind of work all across the line, can play the 3 technique, can play the defensive end position. Chris Jones, if the Texans were able to get him, which the Texans have top 5 cap space in the National Football League entering free agency, that would be an amazing signing for this Houston Texans squad. I would absolutely love it if they were able to pry Chris Jones away from the Kansas City Chiefs, because they need defensive tackle help. Let's not sugarcoat it. They absolutely need that help. So if they're able to get Chris Jones, or maybe one of these guys right here, like a Christian Wilkins, a Justin Matabuke, DJ Reader, bring him back to Houston. Grover Stewart, a low-key name, and then Sheldon Rankins from your Houston Texans squad this past year. Any of these guys I would love for the Texans to sign, as well as possibly drafting a defensive tackle in the 2024 NFL Draft. Jerzon Newton has been mocked to your Houston Texans. Devondre Sweat is tearing up the Senior Bowl right now. I would love if the Texans were able to get him in the first round. Also, Leonard Taylor, Michael Hall, and Mason Smith, all options in the draft as well. But Bleacher Report didn't stop there. They said another prediction for your Houston Texans, that they were going to re-sign Dalton Schultz. If you watched our show earlier this week, we talked about the Texans possibly giving the reins to Brevin Jordan. Well, Bleacher Report indicates that the Texans should sign Dalton Schultz in NFL free agency and bring him back for another season. I wouldn't mind that at all, but Dalton Schultz, the top tight end, in my opinion, in free agency this year. Could he come back to H-Town? I certainly hope so. Now, coming up, I have some early Texans cut candidates going into the offseason. Like I said, last offseason, had some surprise names. A couple names might surprise you for my list this year, but you know what shouldn't surprise you? the great deals our friends over at Fanatics have. And if you go to chatsports.com/Texans sale, you can get all these items all on sale right now. Our friends over at Fanatics are hooking you up. Just go to our link so they know that we sent you. Go to chatsports.com/Texans sale. Get all these great items. Stock up on your Texans gear before next season, because I promise you this, you're going to want that gear going into next year, rooting on your Houston Texans. Let me know what you want. I can possibly get some more deals for you. But for right now, go to chatsports.com/Texans sale and check out the deals that they have for you right now. Now, going to early cut candidates. Number one would be Robert Woods. Now, you don't save a ton of money, but all indications are that the Texans are going to add to this receiving core, and you already have Nico Collins, you already have Tank Dell, and then two other young players in John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson. So does Robert Woods really fit in this wide receiver room going into next season? Like I said, you don't really save a ton. The dead cap, 4.75. The cap savings, 4.95. And if you do it as a post-June 1st cut, it's the exact same numbers for Robert Woods. I just don't know how much he fits into this Texans timeline going into next season. And if they do go out and get a big fish like a T. Higgins, like a Mike Evans, what does that mean for Robert Woods? What's his role with the team going into next season? I don't know if he necessarily has one. So that's why I could see him being a cut candidate going into this offseason for your Houston Texans, especially if they add a wide receiver in free agency or in the NFL draft. Next one, and this one breaks my heart because I really thought he was going to show out this past season, but it's Damen Pierce. Ended up losing the starting job to Devin Singletary, who notably is a free agent this offseason, but Damen Pierce, I just don't know. I mean, you could save a little bit of money by cutting Pierce. Is it worth it? I'm not sure, but if the Texans go out and sign a Saquon Barkley and possibly draft a running back, kind of the same situation with Robert Woods. What does that mean for Damen Pierce? What does that mean for his role on the team? I mean, he had the great kick return touchdown. Do you want him to be your RB3 and kick returner? I don't know if that's in the best interest for either side. So Damen Pierce would be the second player on my Texans cut candidates going into this offseason. And let me ask you this. Should the Texans keep Damen Pierce? Give me a yes, give me a no in the comment section. I don't necessarily see a team wanting to trade for Pierce, and if they do, it would be somewhere around the value of a 6th, 7th round pick. But let me know what you have to say. Should the Texans keep Damen Pierce next year? Give me a yes or give me a no down in the comment section. Now this one I was on the fence about because the Texans' tight end depth is a little shaky. We mentioned earlier, Dalton Schultz, a free agent. If the Texans do re-sign him and they have Brevin Jordan, Tegan Quatoriano, he had a lot of promise. He showed a lot of promise as a young tight end, but the injuries have really caught up to him, and he had that groin injury this season that kept him out the entire year. You can save around $800,000 if you do cut him. The dead cap would be $148,000, cap savings at $910,000. I don't know with Tegan. He's had those injuries. Another guy who, what is his role on this team moving forward? He's a young player, a good player, but I don't know if Tegan really sees the field next season for your Houston Texans, especially if they do re-sign Dalton Schultz. And I wouldn't mind also drafting another tight end in this year's draft. So Tegan Quatoriano might end up being a cut candidate for your Houston Texans. And last, Kurt Hinish, the defensive tackle. On the last year of his deal, the Texans really could cut him and really not have any, qualms about it. The dead cap would be $8,000. So you really don't lose a lot by cutting Kurt Hinish. He was your, rotational defensive tackle. So you're not losing a ton of production out of Kurt Hinish either. This could be a name that you see that really just it's a non-starter for the Texans. They already, they need some help at defensive tackle, and I think they're going to get that. I think they're going to go out and spend a lot of money on one of these guys in free agency, as well as draft some defensive tackle help, because they absolutely need it. Kurt Hinish, very up and down this past season. If he came back, would be the exact same. A rotation guy that sees about 10% of snaps if he's lucky. So Kurt Hinish, my last guy who is a cut candidate going into this offseason for your Houston Texans. And before I leave, I really wanted to shout out one guy because growing up, John McClain was the one guy in Houston sports talk. And the Houston sports scene that everybody looked at for breaking news around the Houston Texans, the Houston Astros, the Houston Rockets. John McClain was all over the beat, and he recently got let go by Sports Talk 610 in Houston. So I just got to shout out the legend one time. I really think they did him a little bit dirty, letting him go, and really how they went about it, because John McClain, when you think of Houston sports, when you think of Houston beat writers, John McClain is number one, and then there's a massive tier break. There's not even a 1A, there's not even a 2, a 3. The next one would be 4 or 5 whenever it comes to Houston. I mean, obviously we have Aaron Wilson now, but throughout history, John McClain was that guy. He is Houston sports. So John McClain, shout out to you. You can come on the show anytime you want. Just hit me up on Twitter at Jeremy Chuggs. Let me know. We'd love to have you here on the Texans Report. We are the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube. So if you ever want to come on the show, talk a little ball, just let me know. We'd be more than happy to have you here because, like I said, you are a legend in H-Town. Now, that's all I have for you on today's show. Make sure you hit that sub button or go to youtube.com/TexansTV for daily Texans videos. Once again, we are the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube. So join the wave right now. We're trying to get to 20K subs by the end of this offseason. So go down and hit that sub button.